Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, on the important aspects of commodity derivatives. So, today I will move on to the next important point. Important aspects of commodity. I think voice is clashing on derivatives. So, today I will move on to the. Okay, I think there was some clash of voice which is happening. So, fine. So, we'll continue with the same chapter on commodity derivatives. I think by next class I will finish it off. Okay. So only thing is today I will take half an hour. Okay, till 3:45, 3:50 I will take because I have one more call at 4 o'clock. So having said so, coming back to this commodity derivatives, we have touched upon already the important aspects. Now let us go to the next important thing about regulations. I think regulations, future contracts has been regularized by government, regulatory authorities, and forward contract is something which is not regulated. Okay, so please remember this. When it comes to the question of regulations, since futures are all standardized contracts, they have been regulated already, but forward contracts are not regularized as yet. So that is still there is some scope for forward contracts to come under the purview of regulators. But since it's a OTC, that is over the counter, they have given more flexibility for those people who are interested to get into forward type of arrangements. They can also get into. Okay, those people who are not very serious about fulfilling the contracts during the period, so they can still take advantage of getting into forward contract agreements. But once you get into future contract, right, normally it's very difficult for you to shift from the habit of trading in futures. So most of them who are adopted to the future environment, right, they normally continue with during in future also, future only. Okay. So that's how that market has gone up in the recent years. Then settlement, I think we have discussed in detail about how the settlement process takes place. So future contracts, one advantage is that you can settle the contract either in cash or through physical delivery of goods. Okay, so that is one of the important thing when it comes to the question of comparison between futures and forwards. Even that also becomes a very important point of distinction, because in future contracts, settlement can be either in the form of cash if you don't want to take the ownership of that goods, or if you don't want physical acquisition of that particular commodity, you can go for cash settlement, or you can go for even physical settlement also. But in forward contract, it is always physical settlement which happens, not the cash. So there is no cash settlement in forward contracts. Valuation of open position. Open position means the position of whether you want to buy or sell, whatever it is. In case of future contracts, valuation of open position is calculated as per the official closing price on a daily, and mark to market margin requirement exists. So this is something which is very important point, which is needs to be brought out when you are bringing distinction between forward contracts and future contracts. So as a future contract, your whatever the position you are taking, whether as a buyer or a seller or whatever it is, the everyday price is calculated. That is based on the closing rates, closing price, whatever the transaction, that particular transaction, whatever you have agreed upon, the contract, whichever you have taken upon, right? So they will be watching that particular contract's price movement on day-to-day basis. So every day the price will be calculated at the closing rates. That is the closing rates of the exchange. and if there is any loss or gain, accordingly it is settled to the respective parties by the clearinghouse agents. That is called as mark to market. But these type of arrangements are not there in forward contracts. So forward contract, just you need to enter into contract and daily settlement on valuation is not happening. So there is no question of mark to market which comes here. So that is one more important distinction which you need to bring it out when you are talking about forward contracts. The next one is organized future exchanges. So as we have discussed till now, one thing clearly establishes that future contract transaction takes place on a electronic platform which are well formulated or well designed or well equipped with. So at each stage of trade, you have people who have been identified who will be working on that particular thing. So keeping this thing in mind, one conclusion what we can say is it's an organized exchange. Organized means right from booking the order and signing the agreements and depositing the margin requirements and daily price settlements and settlements taking place at the end of the contract, taking the delivery and closing the transaction finally. Every stage you see some organized efforts being put in the market and trade gets moved from one stage to another stage in a hassle-free environment. So this is the beauty of organized exchanges. So everything, even in bank transaction also, we have discussed that bank transaction happens almost through your electronic mode, and passing of benefits and passing of gain and all those things happens through debit and credit entries. That means everything is happening in a structured way when it comes to the question of future markets. But in forward markets, everything is haphazard. Okay, so since it's a exchange contract between two people without involving any exchanges, so most of that contract terms are done manually, and there are very risky contracts because they don't officially put everything in writing. Okay, so whatever they put and whatever they follow is something different. So coming back to the margins, the buyer and seller of the future contracts are required to deposit some cash or security as margin. So this is called as initial margin. We discussed in detail about this margins. So that is there in future contracts, but forward contracts, there is nothing called as margin. Okay, so there is nothing called as margin money. It's only signing of the contract between the two parties. So they don't they don't give, sometimes they may pay some advances, but it's not that both the parties should deposit. Either of the party will deposit the money as an advance. But in this case, money is collected from both the party. In future contracts, buyer and seller, both of them should deposit some percentage of the contract value as margin requirement with the third party, that is your clearinghouse agents. So he will take custody of those things. But here, nothing like that. You can pay some advances. Again, that will be forming part of your agreement also. You will be mentioning that so much advance has been reserved in forward contracts. But both the parties will not deposit that money. That's something which you need to bear it in mind. Liquidity. Future contract is more liquid as it is traded in exchange. So why it's called as liquid? Because future contracts, some future contracts can be exchanged, okay, within the due date. So no need for you to wait. You can transfer it also. You can assign that future contract to someone else also. That's possible. Or you can close at the middle of the contract period itself. That option is there. It depends on the type of contracts you are entering into. So European contract and US contract are there too, but American contracts are the future contracts. So it depends upon which type of contracts you are entering into. So if you are entering into a contract where you have a position to take in the middle of the contract, if you want exit from the contract in the middle stage, then there is a possibility for you to do the exit also. So that is guaranteed to you. in such contracts. Okay, not in all contracts. So that is one thing which you need to bear in mind, which is very important. So liquidity is there when you talk about future contract, but forward contract we don't know because it goes into a high risk categories. So we don't know whether that particular thing will happen or not. So there is a huge risk associated with liquidity. So it's highly difficult to predict whether there will be a scope for us to go into a contract for a longer term, because both the parties have only agreed. Okay, so one of them may disappear, okay, from the market when the time comes for honoring the contract. So liquidity is not sure because it purely depends on the agreement whatever you have entered into. So that is one thing. Then comes options. So options we have discussed already. An option is a contract which gives the right but not the obligations. So it gives a right either to buy or sell depending upon whether you have gone for a put option or a call option, which is that option you are entering into. So again, these are the contracts which are written by people who wants to execute the contracts. So there are option writers. They are the people who write these options for you, and these options are put on the stock exchange. This exchanges, and depending upon the need and requirement, if anyone is interested, they will buy that options. And it only gives you right but not obligation. That means what? You can enter into contract with an agreed amount and all those things, and there is something called as premium money which you are supposed to pay and enter into the contract. And on the day of the maturity of the contract, it is left to you whether you honor the contract or you dishonor the contract, because there is an option for you. That is the option they are given. Whether if you want, you honor it. If you don't want, don't honor it. So you will lose that principal premium money, whatever you have deposited, right? That is the only loss which you need to suffer in options. There is no other loss. So it's something which is they have given you a right but not an obligation. Okay. So the binding part is not there between the parties. That contract should be honored on that particular vesting date, right? It should be honored. That type of obligation is not there between the buyer and seller. So there is something called as index options. So here what happens when you are entering into a contract for such type of option, the option price, that is the contract price for the option, is arrived at based on the index. So that means just like how you take in futures underlying assets like gold, oil, all those things as a base asset to arrive at price. In options, we take index as a base. What is this index? Index is nothing but your share market index. So index is calculated based on the sectors. So software sector, what is the index? Consumer durable goods sector, what is the index? Pharmaceutical, what is the index? Manufacturing, like this. Sector-wise, banking, sanitary sector, what is the index? Like this. See, index is something which talks about the particular sector's performance over a period of time. So that will be available from the stock exchange sites. So that has been taken as an underlying price for fixing the option price. So underlying asset is taken as index here. That's why it's called as index option. So options can be, as I discussed, European option or American option. So depending upon whether you want to keep the option till the end or whether you want to get rid of the option during the period of the validity of the option, it is left to you depending upon what type of option you purchase. So when you go to the market, they will clearly specify it's a European option or it's an American option. Next, buyer of an option. So the buyer is nothing but the holder of an option. So anyone who holds the option can be either in the form of buyer or a seller. The buyer of an option is the one who, by paying the option premium, buys the right not the obligation. Okay, so he buys the right but not the obligation. And expiration date is the date when the option vests, that is when the option matures. So it is a date which you need to agree upon at the time of entering into the option contract itself. So expiration date is the date on which the option gets settled or option gets matured. So it depends upon how the settlement takes place on that particular date. Then comes strike price. That is the price specified in the option contract, and that is nothing but your exercise price. Okay, so this exercise price is again the price which has been agreed upon at the initial stage of the contract itself. So the price what you have derived based on the underlying assets, right? Depending on index options or whatever the type of options you have used. So whatever the price you have arrived at, right? That is the strike price. Strike price means price at which you are supposed to exchange the options. Then in the money option is there, at the money options are there, and out of money option is also there. So these are the three different variants of options contracts. In the money option is an option that would lead to a positive cash flow to the holder if it were exercised immediately. So any options which gives the cash inflow for the holder of the option, that means which benefits the holder of the option, then it is called in the money option. So this will come into picture only when it is exercised. So a call option on the index is said to be in the money when the current index stands at a level higher than the strike price. So see here, what is the strike price? That is the difference between your spot price and the strike price. So in the money is always when your spot price, that is today's market price prevailing at the time of entering the contract, is greater than your strike price. Strike price is your exercise price, which has been arrived at by using the underlying asset. So whenever your spot price is more than your strike price, then it is called as in the money option. So in the money option always results in the enough cash generation. So when I'm talking about when I want to exercise this option as a buyer of this option, or when as a holder of the option, because I can be taking both the positions. So holder of the option, when he wants to exercise that option on that particular day, if he wants to exercise and if the spot price prevailing on the day is greater than the strike price, then I benefit because I bought that option at a lesser price, because my strike price is lesser than my option price, spot price. So spot price, if I would have bought that particular thing on that particular expiration day from the market, I would have paid more because prevailing price in the market is high for that. But I had bought at a lesser price when I was entering into a contract of option. So that is in the money. So I'm getting the cash flow from that particular transaction. So it's called as in the money option. At the money option is a situation where you don't suffer any profit or you don't suffer any loss. So there is zero cash flow from that particular type of option if it is exercised immediately. So what does this mean? Your spot price is equal to your strike price. So if your spot price is equal to strike price, then it is the contract of zero cash flows. So that is called as at the money option. The last one is out of money option. That means, as it says out of money, that means cash inflow is not there, cash outflow will be there. So this will normally happen when your strike price is more than your stock. That means your spot price is less than your strike price. So this is a situation where there will be negative cash flows, and if the contract of option is exercised. So a call option on index is index that is out of the money when the current index stands at a level lesser than the strike price. So strike price is, please remember, the price which we have agreed upon at the time of entering into the contract. And if that price is more than more than your spot price, then we find a situation of out of money option. Intrinsic value of an option. So what is intrinsic value? Intrinsic value is the value which is determined by the inner value of that particular option. So it is the intrinsic value of the option which is very important, because I need to vet that with the other prevailing indexes which are there in the market, and I need to visualize whether this will bring revenue to me or not if I exercise this option on that particular vesting date. So that is very important point. Okay. So the next one is difference between futures and option. Future is exchange traded, even option is same. It's also an exchange traded only. So in case of futures, exchange defines the product. In options also exchange defines, because those people who want to write an option they are called as option writers. These people write in the exchange itself. Okay, so the exchange is the platform on which they will write the contract. So as soon as the contract is written and loaded into the exchange, so exchange defines the product in case of futures. In options also, your contract is defined by the exchange itself, because I'm writing that contract to that particular exchange. So in case of futures, price is 0, strike price moves. But in case of option, strike price is fixed, but prices move. This is very important. So when you are entering into future contract, we assume that on that particular spot price, the prices is 0. That's why we arrive at based on underlying asset. So we take underlying asset and arrive at a price. So it is always the strike price which moves. But in case of option, strike price is fixed, because that is entered at the time of contract, and prices move. It keeps on varying. That's why we take a stand of whether to honor the contract. That's the obligation which lies at the time of honoring the contract, right? That is because of price always changes. So I may take different position depending upon whether it will be beneficial for me or not. Then price is 0, linear payoff. Linear payoff means why? Because whatever the committed price is there, that is the price which I'll be settling with. So whatever the losses are there, that is taken from the gainer and settled to the loss. So there is linearity in terms of settlement of the contract. So prices is 0. But price is always positive, non-linear payoff in case of options. So there is nothing called as linearity in the price which prevails in the option contract, because prices are always positive here. In option, that's the thing which encourages people to take a position at different point of time. Futures, again, both long and short at risk, but options only short at risk. Okay, so short position means opting for a position which is to come out of the particular transaction before the exchange, before the due date. That is called a short position. So when you exercise an option at a short position, it's always a loss, because you need to pay your premium money doesn't come back to you. But both long and short at risk in case of futures. Okay, because if you don't honor the contract on that particular day, you need to settle whatever the price has been agreed, and you need to even go for that commitment also. Whatever the commitment you have agreed at, you need to settle it if you want to come out of the contract. So future contracts, you enjoy risk in both cases when you are in long and short. if you are opting for long position as well as if you are opting for a short position, you will be suffering loss. There is a huge risk there. Okay, but in case of options, you enjoy gains in long position, but if it is a short position, then you suffer a loss. Okay, so advantage of taking the price is very important here. So difference between forwards and options. Forward contracts, both the buyers and seller are bound by the contract. Under options, the buyer has a right to decide whether or not she would exercise the option. So that is the beauty of the contract. So in case of options, the buyer decides whether to honor the contract or not. So that is why they give obligations to. But in forward contracts, both the parties are bound. But to how much extent both the parties agree, that's different. But at the time of entering into contract, both the parties agree that they will be fulfilling the contract. But in case of options, both the parties, only the buyer needs to exercise the option. So there also he has been given obligation not to stick the direction that he should buy the contract. No, it's not like that. Then forward contracts are flexible, but option is more not so flexible. We can call. What is this? So what is this flexibility? See, since it's an agreement between two parties outside the exchange, so they have every flexibility to bring changes into their contract depending upon mutual agreements. So they have written some contracts. So after some time they can come, they can just say that this provision will remove, this provision will add, and likewise they can bring some changes into the contract. But the same thing is not there in case of option because it is exchange rate. So options are routed through exchanges. So you cannot keep on making changes into a contract as and when you need. So that's why their flexibility is not there. Next, option premium required to be paid. So that is only the loss which you suffer if you don't honor the contract. Option premium should be paid. But in forward contract, no premium amount is to be paid. So there is nothing like that. Only thing is advance you can ask. So that too, it depends upon the mutual agreements. If they want, they will agree. They will pay that advance money. If they don't want, they will not pay the advance money. So to that extent, there is a risk always associated with forward contracts because there is nothing, no monetary, what is it, deposits or something like that, margins, whatever is kept at the time of entering into the contract. Rare cases, advance may be taken, but most of the cases they don't. They just want enter into only the transactions of how to settle the contract in future, but they don't enter into the financial aspects, and they don't bring that financial aspects in every stages of the contract. That is not there. So that is one of the main advantages. Options, you lose premium. That is the only thing what you are supposed to bring in, and you lose if obligation is not met. So that is the risk which you are suffering. That is the money which you get for risk what you are taking by signing the option contracts. So I think swaps have already done. Okay, so I'll stop here. There are some little topics which I need to complete. So I'll complete this in my next class. So probably by tomorrow I'll close this particular topic. So any questions, please let us know. So if you have any questions, please ask me, or else we can wind it up. Any questions? Do you have any questions, or else we'll wind it off? So I hope no questions are there from your side. Hello, are you there? Okay, you people are there. Or doing some other work, just putting me on screen and you are doing some other work there. Question paper for internal you are asking. Okay. Say internal is for how many marks here? 20 marks, right? 10 marks or 20 marks? How much? What is the marks for internals? 20 marks. Okay. So for one internal 20, only one internal, right? Or you have two internals? 20 marks. Okay. So how many internals? Only one, huh? Two internals. That is 40 marks, huh? Or 10 marks. Two internal 10 marks each, huh? One internal 10 marks then. Am I correct? One internal 10 marks. Or is it 40 marks? Oh, 40 marks. Okay, two internals you have for 40 marks. That means project will be 5 marks, right? No, no, no. One internal 10 marks you're telling. One internal 20 marks. Okay. Okay. There is only one internal which is for 10 marks. No two internals then. Okay. What all 20 marks for each internal? Then it is 40 marks totally. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll give you a small project. Okay. So that will be part of your internal only. Plus, I will conduct one test for 10 marks. Okay. So I'll give you three questions and I'll ask you to write only two out of it. Okay. Okay. Assignment, 5 marks. Fine. I'll give you some project. You can write that project as an assignment. So I'll type the question tomorrow. That is one thing. Second one is I'll give you some questions. Okay. 3 questions. You can write 2 questions and send it to me. Okay. So that will be part of our internal assessment. Okay. Then I will also speak to madam regarding if there is any particular pattern of how we need to give it. If they have received any instructions from the university or if there is any guidelines on this particular thing from universities, I'll just speak to them. So if possible, I'll try to again discuss with madam and find out what is the correct pattern we should give so that tomorrow it should not be something which has come out differently from what other people are doing. So if there is any clear instructions, let us follow that instructions. So what I'll do tomorrow, I'll speak to madam. So tomorrow probably will be my last class. Okay. So I've done with the syllabus. There are some more things which I need to talk to you. So I'll just talk to you on all those fronts because there are some changes which has taken place in the recent years. I need to highlight on those changes also. So once it is done, I'll just share some questions and also the assignments with you on internal. So you can use that for the internal purposes also. So, okay, any questions on today's session? Today is just, we briefed about whatever we have learned all these days. The future, forwards, difference between futures and forwards and all those things. So, okay, any questions you have or any doubts you have, you can ask me, or else I'll close it for the day. So we can start up tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow in the afternoon itself, 3:15 will start. Okay, so tomorrow will be my last class. Okay, I'll complete the syllabus tomorrow. Okay, shall we say bye? Okay, bye. Okay.